The massive trading station floated in the darkness of space like a glittering jewel. Inside its metal corridors, hundreds of different alien species moved about their daily business. The air buzzed with strange languages and the sound of footsteps from creatures with 2 legs for legs and sometimes no legs at all. Thrak moved through the crowd like a shadow. His green scales caught the light from overhead panels as he walked. He stood much taller than most of the other beings around him, his long tail swishing behind him as he searched. His yellow eyes moved from side to side, watching everything. The Vorthak warrior had been hunting for 3 days now. His home planet was a dangerous world where only the strongest lived. His people learned to hunt from the time they could walk. They could smell fear from far away and see body heat like colored pictures. These skills made them perfect hunters among the stars. Today felt different though. The station was more crowded than usual. Cargo ships had arrived that morning bringing traders from 12 different worlds. More aliens meant more chances to find what he was looking for. His forked tongue flicked out to taste the air. So many scents mixed together. The sweet smell of Centauri merchants who always carried too much money. The sharp scent of fear from the small furry beings who ran the food stands. The metallic smell of the robot workers who cleaned the floors. Thrak's thermal vision kicked in. The world around him changed into a map of heat and cold. Warm bodies glowed red and yellow against the cooler background of metal walls. He could see which beings were calm and which were nervous. Nervous ones made better targets. An old Altarian diplomat walked by, clutching a briefcase against his chest. His body temperature showed he was scared. Perfect. Thrak followed at a distance, watching how the old alien looked over his shoulder every few steps. Fear made prey easy to catch. But something made Thrak stop. A sound caught his attention. Laughter. Not the harsh bark of a saurian or the musical trill of a centauri, but something else. Something that made his hunting instincts pause. He turned toward the sound and saw a small crowd gathered around one of the food vendors. In the center stood a creature he had never seen before. It walked on 2 legs like many species, but something about it was different. Its skin was a pale pink color, and it had hair growing only on the top of its head. The creature was talking to the vendor, making gestures with its hands. Other aliens nearby were laughing at whatever it was saying. Even the normally serious Centauri security guards were smiling. This was odd. Most species kept to themselves on trading stations. Thrak studied the strange being more carefully. It appeared weak at first glance. No sharp claws, no thick hide, no natural weapons he could see. Its teeth looked flat and harmless when it smiled. But there was something about the way it moved that bothered him. His genetic memory stirred. Deep in his mind, information passed down from thousands of generations of Vorthak hunters began to surface. This creature looked familiar somehow, though he was sure he had never seen one before. The being finished its conversation with the food vendor and began walking through the station. Thrak decided to follow. His predator instincts told him to stay back and observe first. Good hunters always studied their prey before striking. As he followed, Thrak noticed more strange things. The creature moved with purpose but not in a hurry. Its head turned slightly from side to side as it walked, taking in everything around it. Most prey animals either stayed focused straight ahead or looked around nervously. This one seemed to be simply aware. Other aliens gave it space as it walked, but not because they feared it. They seemed to respect it somehow. A group of young saurians who normally pushed smaller beings out of their way stepped aside politely. An elderly Centauri female even nodded in greeting as it passed. Thrak's confusion grew. His hunting instincts were sending mixed signals. The creature looked like prey, but something deep in his mind was screaming warnings. His ancestors had survived by learning to recognize danger, even when it didn't look dangerous. The strange being stopped at a shop that sold trinkets from different worlds. It picked up a small carved figure and examined it carefully. The shop owner, a nervous little alien with 6 arms, relaxed visibly when the creature smiled and asked questions about the carving. This was wrong somehow. Thrak had hunted on dozens of worlds and thousands of stations. He knew how prey behaved, and this wasn't it. Prey animals were jumpy, watchful, quick to startle. They traveled in groups for protection or stayed near security guards. They didn't wander around alone, making friends with strangers. His thermal vision showed the creature's body temperature was steady and calm. No signs of stress or fear. Even when a loud crash came from a nearby cargo bay, the being simply glanced over, assessed that there was no danger, and returned to examining the carved figure. Thrak began to feel something he rarely experienced during a hunt. Uncertainty. His training told him that when uncertain, a smart hunter observed longer before acting. He found a spot behind a large cargo container where he could watch without being seen. The creature bought the small carving and continued walking through the station. Thrak settled in to watch and wait. Something told him this hunt was going to be different from any he had attempted before. Thrak crouched behind the cargo container, his yellow eyes fixed on the strange creature. Hours had passed and still the being puzzled him. Every hunting instinct he possessed was at war with itself. The creature had introduced itself to the shop owner as Tom. Such a simple name for something that was becoming more mysterious by the minute. Tom moved through the station like he owned it, stopping to chat with vendors, helping lost travelers find their way, and even breaking up a small argument between two Centauri merchants. What bothered Thrak most was how Tom's eyes worked. They faced forward, not to the sides like most plant-eating prey. Forward-facing eyes meant hunter, not hunted. But Tom showed none of the aggressive behavior that hunters usually displayed. He didn't bare his teeth as threats. He didn't puff up his body to look bigger. He didn't mark territory or challenge other males. Thrak's thermal vision picked up something else troubling. Tom's body heat stayed perfectly steady even when startling things happened around him. A cargo hauler had backfired loudly near Tom's head, making several nearby aliens jump and squeal. Tom had simply glanced at it, determined it was not a threat, and continued his conversation about local food prices. Only apex predators stayed that calm when loud noises happened suddenly. The Vorthak warrior watched as Tom approached a group of Saurian teenagers who were blocking a corridor. These young aliens were known troublemakers, using their size to intimidate smaller beings. Most creatures would take a different path to avoid them. Tom walked right up to them. But instead of showing fear or aggression, he simply smiled and said something that made them all laugh. Within moments, they were showing him pictures on their data tablets and asking him questions about his home world. Soon they moved aside completely, waving goodbye as Tom continued on his way. This was impossible. Saurians respected only strength. They would never willingly move for a creature that couldn't fight them. Yet Tom had made it look easy, like he was talking to old friends instead of potential threats. Thrak's genetic memory began pulling up more information. Deep patterns stored in his DNA from millions of years of evolution were trying to tell him something important. The data felt familiar but also wrong, like a half-remembered dream. Tom stopped at a medical station where an injured Zenthri worker was being treated. The blue-skinned alien had hurt his arm moving cargo. Tom sat down next to him and started talking quietly. Soon the Zenthri was laughing despite his pain, seemingly more relaxed just from Tom's presence. The sight made Thrak's scales prickle with unease. Social bonding across species was rare. Most aliens barely tolerated each other, let alone formed friendships. But Tom seemed to connect with every being he met, regardless of what they looked like or where they came from. A memory surfaced from Thrak's childhood. His grandfather telling stories about the old days, when the Vorthak first left their home world and encountered other species among the stars. The elder had spoken of rumors about creatures from a world so dangerous that survival required becoming something more deadly than the environment itself. Tom pulled out the small carved figure he had bought earlier and handed it to the injured Zenthri. The alien's face lit up with surprise and gratitude. Tom just shrugged and said something that made them both laugh again before walking away. Thrak felt his hunting confidence crumble. Generosity was not a prey behavior. Prey animals hoarded resources for survival. They did not give valuable items to strangers for no reason. Only a creature that feared no scarcity would be so casual about sharing wealth. The more Thrak observed, the more his predator instincts screamed warnings. Tom's seemingly casual walk through the station was actually a masterpiece of awareness. His eyes constantly scanned his surroundings without appearing to do so. He positioned himself near exits in every room. He noticed when security guards changed shifts and which aliens were carrying concealed weapons. Most disturbing of all, Tom seemed to be evaluating every being he met. Not with the nervous fear of prey checking for threats, but with the calm assessment of a predator determining which creatures were dangerous and which were harmless. When a fight broke out near the main dining area, Tom didn't flee like most civilians. Instead, he moved to a position where he could see everything clearly while staying out of direct conflict. His body language shifted subtly, becoming more alert and ready. The change was so smooth that most beings wouldn't notice it, but Thrak's enhanced senses caught every detail. The fight ended quickly when station security arrived, but Thrak had seen enough. Tom had been ready to act if needed. Not with panic or fear, but with calculated precision. The way his muscles had tensed, the angle of his stance, the way his hands had moved closer to objects that could be used as weapons if necessary. Only trained fighters moved that way. Only creatures that had survived real combat developed such instincts. As Tom resumed his casual exploration of the station, Thrak felt something he had never experienced during a hunt. Doubt. His prey identification systems were failing completely. Everything about Tom suggested he should be easy to hunt, but every survival instinct Thrak possessed was telling him to stay far away. The Vorthak warrior settled deeper into his hiding spot, his confusion growing with each passing minute. What exactly was he dealing with? Deep in Thrak's mind, ancient memories began to stir. His genetic code carried information passed down through thousands of generations of Vorthak hunters. Data about dangerous species, survival tactics, and most importantly, which creatures to avoid at all costs. The memories came in fragments at first. Images of a blue and green world spinning in space. Stories told by the eldest hunters about creatures that walked upright on two legs. Warnings about beings that looked weak but were actually the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Thrak's breathing grew shallow as the pieces came together. Tom was human. The realization hit him like a cold wave washing over his scales. Humans came from a world called Earth, a planet so hostile that most galactic surveys classified it as uninhabitable. The gravity was crushing, the weather was violent, and nearly everything on the surface was trying to kill everything else. Yet somehow humans had not just survived there, they had thrived. More memories surfaced. Humans were persistence hunters, meaning they chased their prey for days or weeks until the target collapsed from exhaustion. They could run for hours without stopping, tracking wounded animals across vast distances until their victims simply gave up and died. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that humans hunted other hunters. Thrak's claws dug into the metal floor as he remembered the stories. On their home world, humans had systematically eliminated every large predator that threatened them. Giant cats with teeth like knives, massive bears that could crush bones with their jaws, pack hunters that worked together like military units. All gone, hunted to extinction by creatures that looked as harmless as Tom. Even worse, humans had somehow convinced other predators to work for them. They had taken wolves, beasts that would be apex predators on most worlds, and turned them into loyal companions. The wolves lived in human homes, played with human children, and fought alongside human warriors. Only a predator more dangerous than wolves could make wolves into pets. Thrak watched Tom stop to examine a display of local artwork. The human picked up a small sculpture, turning it over in his hands with careful attention. His movements were gentle, almost delicate. But Thrak now saw the truth behind those soft gestures. Those hands had evolved to grip tools and weapons. Those fingers could tie knots, build traps, and throw spears with deadly accuracy. More genetic memories flooded in. Humans were tool users, but not like other species who use simple devices. Humans made tools to make other tools. They built machines that could think. They created weapons that could destroy entire planets from across star systems. Tom set down the sculpture and smiled at the vendor. That smile made Thrak's blood turn cold. Human teeth looked flat and harmless, but Thrak now remembered what those teeth really meant. Humans were omnivores, meaning they ate both plants and meat. They could survive on anything. When other predators starved because their prey was gone, humans would simply change their diet and keep living. The vendor, a small furry being with large eyes, was chatting happily with Tom. She had no idea she was talking to a member of the most successful predator species in galactic history. Humans had spread to more worlds than any other race, not through conquest but through simple adaptation. They could live anywhere, eat anything, and befriend anyone. Thrak remembered hearing about human colonies on ice worlds where the temperature never rose above freezing. They built cities on desert planets where the heat would kill most beings in minutes. They lived underwater, underground, and even in the vacuum of space itself. No environment was too harsh for them. Tom pulled out a small communication device and spoke into it briefly. Even this simple action sent chills through Thrak's body. Humans were pack hunters who stayed in constant contact with their groups. If Tom was in trouble, dozens of other humans could arrive within minutes. They would coordinate their response like a military unit, sharing information instantly across vast distances. The Vorthak warrior had heard stories from other hunters about trying to capture individual humans. The attempts always ended the same way. More humans would appear, seemingly from nowhere, working together with frightening efficiency. They never left their pack members behind. They never gave up. They never stopped hunting those who threatened their own. Tom finished his conversation and put the device away. He waved goodbye to the vendor and continued walking through the station. To everyone around him, he looked like a peaceful tourist enjoying his visit. Only Thrak could see the truth now. Those eyes that seemed so small were actually perfectly designed for tracking movement across long distances. That seemingly weak body was built for endurance, able to function on little food and water for extended periods. That calm, friendly behavior was the confidence of a creature that had no natural predators. Most terrifying of all, Tom was probably not even armed. Humans were so dangerous that they did not need weapons to be deadly. Their bare hands could kill, their teeth could tear flesh, and their minds could turn anything around them into tools for violence. Thrak felt his hunting instincts completely shut down. Every survival mechanism his species had developed over millions of years was screaming the same message: retreat immediately. He was not looking at prey. He was looking at the apex predator of apex predators, and it had not even noticed he existed. That might be the only thing keeping him alive. Thrak's entire body began to shake. Not from cold or excitement, but from pure terror. His hunting instincts, trained over millions of years of evolution, were all screaming the same command: run. He tried to back away from his hiding spot, but his legs felt weak. His claws scraped against the metal floor as he struggled to move quietly. Every sound seemed impossibly loud now. What if Tom heard him? What if those forward-facing eyes turned in his direction? The human was still examining artwork at the vendor's stall, completely unaware that he was being watched. But Thrak now understood this was probably just an act. Humans were always aware of their surroundings. Tom likely knew exactly where every being in the area was located, including one terrified Vorthak hiding behind cargo containers. Sweat began to form under Thrak's scales. He had never experienced fear like this during a hunt. Usually he was the one being feared. Other creatures saw his 7-foot frame, his sharp claws, and his predator's eyes and immediately understood their place in the food chain. Now he was the one who wanted to hide. Tom laughed at something the vendor said. The sound made Thrak flinch. He had read about human laughter in his genetic memories now. It was not just an expression of happiness. Humans also laughed when they were nervous, when they were planning something, or when they found their enemies amusing. Which type of laughter was this? A group of Saurian thugs walked past Tom's location. These were the same troublemakers who had been causing problems throughout the station for weeks. They were large, aggressive, and feared by most smaller species. Station security usually had to use stun weapons to control them. Thrak watched in horror as the Saurians began to surround Tom. This was it. The human was about to be attacked, and Thrak would witness what happened when someone threatened a member of Earth's apex predator species. But Tom simply looked up from the artwork he was examining and smiled at the Saurians. He said something in their language that made them all stop moving. Their aggressive postures relaxed. Within seconds they were laughing and talking with him like old friends. This was worse than Thrak had imagined. The human had not just avoided conflict, he had turned potential enemies into allies in less than 30 seconds. This was not luck or coincidence. This was the social manipulation that had allowed humans to build the largest alliance network in galactic history. One of the Saurians showed Tom something on his data tablet. Tom nodded and made suggestions, pointing at different parts of the screen. The thugs listened to him with respect, even though he was half their size and appeared completely defenseless. Thrak realized he was watching a master at work. Tom was not just surviving in a potentially dangerous situation, he was controlling it. Those Saurians now saw him as a friend, someone to be protected rather than threatened. If anyone attacked Tom now, they would have to fight through his new Saurian allies first. The conversation ended with the Saurians patting Tom on the back and walking away peacefully. They even picked up some trash from the floor as they left, something they had never done before. Tom had somehow convinced them to be better beings just by talking to them. Thrak tried to move further back into the shadows, but his retreat was blocked by another cargo container. He was trapped in his hiding spot, forced to continue watching the most dangerous creature he had ever encountered. Tom bought a small piece of artwork from the vendor and carefully wrapped it in cloth. His movements were precise and economical, wasting no energy. Even this simple action revealed the efficiency that had made humans successful across the galaxy. They did everything with purpose, nothing by accident. A station announcement echoed through the corridors, calling for all visitors to report to security for routine identification checks. Most beings ignored it, but Tom immediately looked up and began walking toward the security station. He was not trying to avoid authority figures like most criminals would. Instead, he was voluntarily cooperating with station rules. This compliance was another sign of human intelligence. They understood that following local laws made them less likely to attract unwanted attention. They could blend into any society, following customs and regulations perfectly while pursuing their own goals. As Tom walked past Thrak's hiding spot, the Vorthak warrior held his breath. For a terrifying moment, those human eyes seemed to look directly at his location. Tom paused, tilted his head slightly, and appeared to listen for something. Thrak's heart nearly stopped beating. Had he been discovered? Was Tom about to reveal his position to station security? Would other humans soon arrive to deal with the threat? But after a few seconds, Tom shrugged and continued walking. Either he had not detected Thrak's presence, or he simply did not consider one frightened Vorthak worth his attention. Both possibilities were equally terrifying. Thrak waited until Tom was completely out of sight before attempting to move. His legs were still shaking, making it difficult to walk normally. Other beings in the corridor looked at him strangely, probably wondering why such a large predator appeared so frightened. He needed to get off this station immediately. Every minute he remained here increased the chance that he might encounter Tom again, or worse, other humans who might be traveling with him. For the first time in his hunting career, Thrak was running away from prey. Thrak made his way through the station corridors with careful steps, staying far behind Tom but unable to resist watching from a distance. His hunting instincts had completely changed now. Instead of stalking prey, he was observing a master predator in action. Tom arrived at the security checkpoint where a long line of beings waited for identification scanning. Most creatures appeared nervous or annoyed by the process. They shuffled their feet, checked the time repeatedly, and muttered complaints about the delay. Tom simply joined the line and waited patiently. He struck up conversations with the beings around him, asking about their home worlds and sharing stories about interesting places he had visited. Within minutes, the entire line was more relaxed and friendly. Even the grumpy Centauri merchant who had been complaining loudly was now laughing at Tom's jokes. Thrak watched in amazement as Tom transformed a stressful situation into a social gathering. This was not just politeness, it was strategic brilliance. By making friends with everyone around him, Tom had created a network of allies who would remember him positively. If anyone asked about the human later, they would only hear good things. When Tom reached the security scanner, he handed over his identification documents with a smile. The guard, a bored-looking Altarian, perked up immediately. Tom asked about the guard's family, complimented the efficiency of the security system, and even shared a funny story about identification problems he had experienced on other stations. The scan completed quickly, but the guard continued talking with Tom for several extra minutes. By the time Tom left, the guard was treating him like an old friend rather than just another visitor to process. Thrak understood now why humans had been so successful across the galaxy. They did not conquer through force alone, they conquered through friendship. Every being they met became a potential ally, source of information, or future favor. They built networks of cooperation that spanned entire star systems. Tom made his way to the station's observation deck, where large windows provided views of the surrounding space. Several cargo ships were docked at the station's ports, loading and unloading goods from dozens of worlds. Tom stood at one of the windows, apparently enjoying the view. But Thrak's enhanced vision caught details that others would miss. Tom was not just looking at pretty stars, he was studying the ships, counting cargo containers, and noting which vessels had military markings. His eyes moved in patterns that suggested he was memorizing everything he saw. Even his leisure time was actually intelligence gathering. A group of Thraxi pirates entered the observation deck, their weapons clearly visible despite station regulations. These criminals were known for robbing tourists in isolated areas like this. They spotted Tom standing alone by the windows and began moving in his direction. Thrak felt a moment of anticipation. Now he would see what happened when someone actually threatened a human directly. The pirates surrounded Tom, blocking his access to the exits. Their leader, a scarred brute with cybernetic arms, demanded that Tom hand over his credits and identification documents. Tom looked at the pirates with calm interest, as if they were an unusual species he had never encountered before. He did not show fear, anger, or submission. Instead, he seemed genuinely curious about their behavior. The pirate leader repeated his demand more aggressively, stepping closer to Tom and flexing his mechanical fingers. His crew members spread out to prevent any escape attempts. Tom nodded thoughtfully and began to speak in a quiet, conversational tone. Thrak could not hear the exact words from his hiding position, but he could see the effect they had on the pirates. The leader's confident expression slowly changed to confusion, then concern, then something that looked very much like fear. His crew members began glancing at each other nervously. One of them actually took a step backward. Tom continued talking in the same calm voice, occasionally gesturing toward the windows or pointing at something Thrak could not see. Whatever he was saying, it was having a profound effect on the would-be robbers. Within 5 minutes, the pirates were backing away from Tom entirely. The leader actually apologized before hurrying his crew toward the exit. They left the observation deck quickly, muttering among themselves and looking over their shoulders. Tom returned to enjoying the view from the windows as if nothing had happened. Thrak realized he had just witnessed something remarkable. Tom had not fought the pirates, threatened them, or called for security. He had simply talked to them, and somehow that had been enough to make dangerous criminals flee in terror. What could a human say that would frighten experienced pirates? Thrak's imagination provided several possibilities, none of them comforting. Perhaps Tom had described what would happen if they harmed him. Perhaps he had explained how other humans would respond to threats against their kind. Or perhaps he had simply revealed enough about human capabilities to make the pirates understand they were outmatched. As Tom prepared to leave the observation deck, Thrak made his decision. He would not attempt to hunt this creature or any others like it. His ancestors had survived by recognizing when they were outclassed, and Tom represented a level of danger that no Vortak warrior could handle alone. Thrak slipped away through the station corridors, heading for his ship. He would leave this place immediately and update his species databases with everything he had learned. The greatest hunters, he now understood, were those who knew which battles not to fight.